My name is Sam Shear. I was born December the 25th, 1925, in Poland, in a city with the name Będzin. My dad had 3 children, me and brother and a little sister. She was 10 years old. My father was 42 years old. My mother was 40. And they sent to Auschwitz, and that's where they died. I had 40 cousins. They all perished in Auschwitz. Had 2 granddads and 2 grandmothers. They all went to Auschwitz too. I went to school in Poland. I graduated 7 grades. My father had a slaughterhouse, and he supplied meat to all the butchers around down there. When I was 5 years old, I went to school in a Jewish school to learn how to speak Hebrew. In 1939, when the war broke out, I lived very close to the German border and very close to Auschwitz. When they arrived in my city, the first thing what they done, the dynamite, a beautiful synagogue, was built in 1600. Our city was about 80,000 people, most of them Jews. When the German comes in, and they said, we better not go out of the house, because they're shooting people coming out from the synagogue, because they were studying down there. Then we had to find out how we can survive. We have ration cards, that we can go and get something like milk and eggs. But that was not enough. So what happened to me, I'm a very lucky fellow. Before I went to camp and I went to school, I was associated with my friends. They were not Jewish, but their parents had farms. And to go to this place, I had to cross a little creek. When the German comes in, first they let you have a band with the Star of David in the hand. So I took that off, and I went to my friends. They gave me some potatoes to take home, and they also gave me some carrots. They also gave me a piece of bread. It was very, very helpful. Some people starved with that. In October 1940, the snow was piling up, and the Germans had to ship ammunition all the way because they were fighting with the Russians already. So they went to the mayor and told him they wanted 500 people with shovels that we have to clear up so the train can go by. And after that, they said that we can go buy bread. There was one bakery down there, and they supplied to that bakery flours. So my dad sent me up 7:30 in the morning, and I stayed in a line to get a bread. All of a sudden, a truck comes in, picked up all the young people, and put us on the truck, and they told us we're going to go to work. So what they done, they sent us right down into the concentration camp. And this, my first concentration camp was Strakovo. This was already in Poland. They made us work like leather factories to take off the skin from the cows. I stayed down there for 6 months. They told us we're going to go into another concentration camp. And this was Görlitz. And Görlitz was a camp at least for about 8,000 or 9,000 people down there. And we arrived. They told us to take off all our clothes, take us if you got any watches or jewelry, and they gave us striped pants, striped suits, and they told us that we're going to be staying in this barrack. And then later on, a guy comes in and tells us, we're going to get dinner now. So they went and gave us tin cans, like the coffee cans. No spoon, no knife. And he said, after you finish with that soup, which you couldn't find a piece of potato in it, we're going to bring in a bread for 6 people, divided one bread for 6 people. He says, this is for your breakfast. But the people who were already there told us, if you don't eat out this bread, somebody's going to steal it. 3 o'clock in the morning, we wake up and we're going to go to work. So there's a lineup outside the barracks because there were so many thousand people. And the group what I went to was Krupp. That's the people who get chemicals to Auschwitz. But there was no factory yet. So the assessment comes over to me. He says, looks like you're the strongest here. You're going to mix cement with the bricklayers. In Germany, they call me a Maurer. A Maurer is a man with construction work. So this was the name I got, as Maurer. I had a number here, 65,842. I didn't have no numbers because I was not in Auschwitz. And we have to wear a number. When they call you by that number. We worked till 12 o'clock. They have a kitchen right on the place where you work, and they had a guy cooking soup for us. The soup was some green stuff, pieces for potatoes, and you get just 1 spoon, to eat. But you were hungry, this was not enough. Don't forget, I got in when I was almost 14 years old. So another friend of mine in the camp, he says, you know what, if you're still hungry, if we go to fields where farmers had the field to farm, but they took it away to build factories, you're going to find some cabbage roots inside. So you go look for them, pull them out, and eat them. But if you're still hungry, you can look for worms. There was nothing wrong with you. He says to me, that's what you have to eat to fill up your stomach. See? Some people got sick, that they sent them to the crematorium. There was no doctor, there was no hospital, there was no medication. God was with you. I was crying because, my mother, my father, my sister, and my brother, they didn't know what happened to me, okay? They was wondering because I was shocked when I was taken away from the house. So I live in a barrack with people from other countries, from Greece, from Belgium, Czechoslovakia, So you get used to the trouble, so I went through. I was always a believer in myself that someday it's going to be better. And then I was at this place, and this was Görlitz. In Görlitz, I got typhus fever. 500 people in a barrack. So they closed down the barrack at a very high temperature, and there was a guy next to me, a whole row of people. And the only thing I wanted was water. So when you get off the bunk, they had a line like for the cows to drink. The water was running down. So I crawled down and drank some water. And this was my survival. After the fever went, I tried to call my friend, and they were all dead. But then I slept with dead people. There was about 500 people got the typhus. About 100 survived. Then we had to dig a big hole, and we buried them people. Can you imagine if the typhus not eat? I went back to work, mix cement. And then I went to another camp. This camp was Gross Rosen. And I spent the same thing, via Maurer, you know, make cement and things here. And God helped me, I had a guy who was a bricklayer, was a very old German. The German told me, someday, look in the bricks, because there were bricks with holes. You might find a couple of pellkartoffel that is cooked potatoes and skin. He says, please, you have to eat it up. If they find out that I give anything, I'll be down in your place. And then I went to another camp, Telefunken. They built also ammunition, machinery to war, you know. And I worked on it for about another 2 years. And then I went to another camp. They were connected to Gross Rosen. In Gross Rosen were 80,000 people. And sometimes they need to work in another place. They build barracks, but you were still under the same concentration camp. That's why I was in 5 camps. I went to Dachau, then I went back to Gross Rosen, and then I went to Buchenwald, and it's all going back and forth. In February 1945, they said to get outside the barracks. They take 600 people and make groups. They didn't say, where we going? So we're going on a march. No food, no water, nothing. We walked all day long. I seen bombs flying all over. English, Russian, United States, scared the heck out of me. And we keep walking every day, and all of a sudden, some people couldn't walk no more. So they told us to take them into the forest, and they shot them. So every day we got less people on the road going. In 1945, it was left 26 people of us. After the army comes in, and they told us the war is over. A major told us that he speaks Yiddish, and he talked to us. He says, I want to take a picture of you. So he took a picture of all of us, the 26 people. They put me in a hospital. I weighed 75 pounds. So when I was in the hospital, I couldn't eat nothing for a month, anything but farina and milk and sugar, because our stomach was all shrinked up. The Red Cross sent us packages. And the reason I tell you this is a funny story. I opened up a pack of Red Cross packages. There was canned stuff. I never seen a canned stuff what's inside. In Poland, before the war, we didn't see that kind of stuff. So I started to look. I didn't know how to open up. Finally, I see a package, and a swan was over there on the package. I thought it was duck. I opened up, the piece of soap was there. A very tough piece of soap. That's why it's funny. I had a younger brother in Auschwitz. He went to Auschwitz with my parents, you know. He survived Auschwitz. So he found me because the minute I was liberated, the UNRWA come in and took people's name and sent out lists. I found out the priests in Bendin, where I was born, saved 100 children. They took the kids and gave it to the priest over the wall. And I knew about it after the war was over. When I was in Poland, I went to the church to see the priest. And he just died 2 months before I come. Isn't that beautiful? I took care of myself in Germany. I didn't want to stay down no more. And my brother was already in the United States because he come here as an orphan. When the war was over, the United States Jewish Fund, UNRWA, took all the youngsters, sent them to the United States. So he was already here, and I was over there. And I wanted to come here, and I couldn't come here because they wanted for me to have a letter from somebody from a firm that said, when I come here, I get a job. You have to believe in God. And I didn't tell you this because I'm 95 years old. But a day before I was liberated, I was laying on the grass and I thought I'm not going to be able to walk. And I prayed to God, because the war's almost over, please. And I made a prayer, okay? Because I know if I walk like them, they're going to take me to the forest and shoot me. And I had a prayer to God. Believe it or not, I woke up in the morning and I had no more pains in my 2 legs. Believe it or not, that's the true story.